Thank you, Mary Clark. It is always wonderful to start the morning together with reminder of these songs. The choir is going to sing "Oh, How Good It Is," and I have the words in the chat in just a second. The words are in the chat, and I will put this on the screen for those in the room. Thank you all for being present this morning. It is so nice to see how many of you guys got out in this horrible weather. It's raining, but thankfully not very cold, and it is good to see everyone on Zoom. So this morning I would like to introduce those who are in the meeting house. And so, Dave, I will put it on you. This morning in the meeting house, we have Ellen Craig and Gage Stemmer. We have Kay and Tony Mendenhall. It's good to have you guys back. And Doug Baker. We have Eileen Critch and Tom Harold and Jim Wells.
Yes, I'm on Zoom from my home church.
And on the other side of the on the other side of the room, we have Sharon Reinert, we have Marcia Holliger, we have Norm and Karen Peters, we have Al and Linda Groth, we have Brian and Melissa Thomas, we have Susie Turner and Missy Smith, we have Shirley Erdl and Susan Simons and Dave Longnecker, and we have Doug and Kathy Simmons, and we have Brian Lilly and Rob Pearson in the very back, and Mary Clark and Ron and I. And Dennis Engel. Oh, sorry, Dennis. It's the gray. That's you're wearing gray today. Okay. So here on Zoom this morning, we have Keith Kendall from Friends Fellowship down in Richmond, Indiana. Good morning, Keith. We have Cleo and Diana McFarland from their home here in Winchester. Welcome, Cleo and Diana. We have Bill and Joyce Wagner. I don't quite see Joyce. I'm hoping she'll show up, but we'll wait. We'll wait. Thank you, Bill, for being here with us. They are from Muncie, Indiana. We have Teresa Wallace and Kenny Girton from here in Winchester. Welcome, Kenny and Teresa. We have Betty Locke from out at Summers Point here in Winchester. Welcome, Betty. We have Nate and Becky Edmonds from Westminster in Muncie, Indiana. It's good to see you guys there. And it's good to see Lois Hogue from Sarasota, Florida. Welcome, Lois. We have Delmer Ferguson and Rhonda and Sam Schofield from Overland Park, Kansas. It's good to see you guys. We have Gib Sinclair and Donna Sinclair from Nampa, Idaho. Yeah, there's Donna. Yay. It's good to see you guys both this morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We also have Terry Reinert from here in Winchester. We have Stan and Gretchen Hendrickson from Winchester. It's good to see you guys. I see Gretchen's head there too, so she's right there too. Thank you both for being here this morning. We have Nita Burton, who is here from, I don't know, maybe Indianapolis, home. Good. Nita is here in Winchester. It's good to have you here. We're glad to have Charlie and Valerie Boyd here from Wichita, Kansas. Thank you for being here. And also Tony and Marcia Critch from here in Winchester. Thank you for being here this morning. And Janet Ross from here in Winchester. And we also have, oh, look at that nice picture of JC and Ellen. Yeah, JC and Paul Craig, they are here this morning from Tacoma Park, Washington. So those are the friends that we have gathered this morning to join together in worship, but also to be together in one spirit. So Ron is going to open with the hymn.
If you can find a hymnal, please turn in it to number 494. This hymn is called Like a River Glorious. I don't think it was really written about the Nile, but just saying. But this hymn really does speak to this question of the internal peace that allows us to sleep well at night. So number 494, we'll stand, if you will, and we'll sing this together. Like a river glorious is God's perfect peace, over all victorious in its bright increase. Perfect yet it floweth fuller every day, perfect yet it groweth hearts are fully blessed, finding as He promised perfect peace and rest. Hidden in the hollow of His blessed hand, never foe can follow, never traitor stand. Not a surge of worry, not a shake of care, not a blast of hurry, touch the Spirit there. Stayed upon Jehovah, hearts are fully blessed, finding as He promised perfect peace and rest. Every joy or trial falleth from above, traced upon our dial by the Son of Love. We may trust Him fully, all for us to do. They who trust Him wholly find Him wholly true. Stayed upon Jehovah, hearts are fully blessed, finding as He promised perfect peace and rest. Be seated, if you will, and find perfect peace and rest, but don't put your hymnal away. Let's turn next to hymn number 351, Moment by Moment. It's number 351. Dying with Jesus by death reckoned mine, living with Jesus a new life divine, looking to Jesus till glory doth shine, moment by moment, O Lord, I am thine. Moment by moment I'm kept in His love, moment by moment I fly from above, looking to Jesus till glory doth shine, moment by moment, O Lord, I am thine. Never a trial that He is not there, never a burden that He doth not bear, never a sorrow that He doth not share. Moment by moment, I'm under His care. Moment by moment, I fly from above. Moment by moment, I fly from above, looking to Jesus till glory doth shine. Moment by moment, O Lord, I am thine. Never a weakness that He doth not feel, never a sickness that He cannot heal. Moment by moment in war or in weal, Jesus my Savior abides with me still. Moment by moment I'm kept in His love, moment by moment I fly from above, looking to Jesus till glory doth shine, moment by moment, O Lord, I am thine. Thank you very much for excellent singing.
Sleeping, a very touchy subject. Ron and I, and Gib and Donna will remember, Ron and I had a dog named Heidi. And we had it for the first probably 7, 8, 9 years of our married life. And the older Heidi got, she was a Doberman Pinscher, and she was just the sweetest dog. But she had, I think she probably had arthritis. So whenever we had a bean bag for her where she would sleep when she was in the house with us. And she would go over to that bean bag and start circling. Just stand on the bean bag and just circle, and then lay down, and then find that it wasn't comfortable and stand up again and do it again the other way. And she would do that about 3 or 4 times before she went to sleep. Well, just not too long ago, Ron, in the middle of the night, said, "You're just like Heidi," because I get into bed and I have to maneuver myself to get in a position that's comfortable, and then after a minute I realize, oh, that's not comfortable, and so I do it all over again. And so I am, the bottom line is I am not a good sleeper. When we lived 10 years in Africa, and in the houses that we had, they were all had open screens. And so we always heard everything that went on around us because sound went everywhere and we had no windows to actually close. And so for 10 years, I always thought that I was a really light sleeper, and that it was because of living in Africa that we had those open windows and I could not have silence when I went to bed. Well, I discovered after moving to Winchester, Indiana, that it has nothing to do with Africa. It has nothing to do with open windows. It has a lot to do with just, I'm a light sleeper and I don't sleep well. And I have a brother who's exactly the same way. So it's kind of good to know that it's not just me, that it runs in the family. So when we were looking at these queries, there's not a one there that I couldn't answer or give you a story about. But I do want to just mention one thing that has been a matter of survival for me in the last probably 6 months, because I've had, since the tornado and all of the things that have been going down at Friends Fellowship with me and the being clerk of the board down there, just a lot of stress going on down there. With my mom dying and with Delmer being concerned about him, there is a lot of stuff to think about every single night. And so when I happen to wake up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, my mind is just going 100 miles an hour. And the thing that has saved me is Brian Lilly. I never thought he would save me, but it is the practice of singing together in choir practice on Thursdays, that we sing the same song 2 or 3 or 4 times. And you know, when I go home, probably for the rest of the week, when I have a moment when my mind is just not occupied, the song that we sing for the week comes to my mind. And I go over those words again and again and again. And so to close this, I want to tell you again the songs or the hymns from, or the words from the hymn that we sang this morning. And the reason I want to do this is because as I was thinking about these words this week, it was not about the music, it was about the theology. And I am thankful for Brian Lilly. When he picks a song, he sure picks the music, picks what we're able to sing, but he picks theology. He talks, his choices are about good theology, and this song is good theology. Oh, how good it is when the family of God dwells together in spirit, in faith, in unity, where the bonds of peace of acceptance and love are the fruits of his presence here among us. So with one voice, we'll sing to the Lord, and with one heart, we'll live out his word till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for he dwells in the presence of his people. Oh, how good it is on this journey we share to rejoice with the happy and weep with those who mourn. For the weak find strength, the afflicted find grace when we offer the blessing of belonging. Oh, how good it is to embrace his command, to prefer one another, forgive as he forgives, when we live as one. When we live as one, we all share in the love of the Father, with the Son and the Father and the Spirit. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one heart we'll live out his word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for he dwells in the presence of his people. If that is not true today, then we've all got work to do. So let's make that true. Thank you for being here this morning.
I really hate to ask the obvious question, but how'd you sleep last night? I hope you slept well and came rested and ready to hear God speaking to us today. I, too, am grateful to see all of you and so thankful that you've gotten out to be together in God's presence on this day. I think I'll begin by reading the New Testament passage that was typed at the top of the essay that we sent around, and to just give just a bit of context. This little passage seems like it's kind of plugged in where it didn't really apply to what was going on around it. And sometimes you'll find scripture that's like that because the people that ultimately put it together didn't know where to put a piece, so they just kind of put it where they put it. And that's okay, because we trust that God was leading them and that we can make sense out of this. But this comes just on the heels of Matthew chapter 10. I'll read from Matthew chapter 11, starting with the 25th verse. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus sent out the disciples on their first solo mission, if you recall. And then if you read through Matthew 10 and the early part of Matthew 11, you realize that they ran into some stuff. They ran into some obstacles, some challenges, some difficulties. Jesus knew they would. That's why he sent them out 2 by 2, so that they could figure it out together and deal with those things and not do harm, but learn to do well at the command of Jesus. And so it's when they came back and had their debriefing, I think that they probably talked through a bunch of those difficult things that they had faced. And then it comes to this, they were tired. They were worn out. Jesus gave them a hard assignment. It was probably more emotionally and spiritually stressful than it was physically. They did have to go wandering around Galilee a bit to preach in the cities and the synagogues and other places. But Jesus knew that that is hard work. And he knew that when they came back together, they would be weary. And so he said to them, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. So come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. In the great big picture, Jesus knew that every one of us was going to find life kind of difficult sometimes. Every one of us, even those who are really trying to be obedient servants of God, are going to face exhaustion, going to face frustration because of failures or because of things that just didn't go the way that we had hoped they would. And so I think that Jesus makes those words for us today, even as much as he did for his disciples in that day. That in a world where our calling is a difficult one, always has been, always will be, to convince people of the truth when God's enemy is doing such a good job of convincing them otherwise, we are going to get tired. We are going to get frustrated. We are going to feel like failures sometimes. And Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavily burdened, and I will give you rest." I was fascinated by the little article that somebody sent us last week. I do not know who that person is, and I do not know what medical credentials they might have. She seemed to have some medical knowledge anyway, and so it made the article interesting because she looked at the fact, her thesis of this little article was that God created us with the tools to be able to deal with those stresses that come at us in this difficult life. God built that stuff into us, especially with those hormones secreted by the pineal gland during sustained sleep. It takes some hours for those secretions of those hormones to fully take place. And so if we are shortchanging our sleeping time at night, we are, in a sense, short-circuiting God's healing mechanism for helping us to cope with a very stressful life. And so she said, we need to learn that we should observe God's intentions about human life. And, we have to keep up with advances in technology and other things. We can't just ignore that stuff. The Amish have tried, and that hadn't worked out real great for them. That's not what God expects. But he does expect us to honor the principles that he created into the human race when he created us. And when we think that we are smarter than God and think that we can violate all of those principles with impunity, we do ourselves harm, and we wipe out the internal healing processes that God created into us that can help us to live healthy and productive lives. That's really what that woman was doing in writing what she wrote. I want to point out a couple of things that I told Pam last night. I'm so frustrated when I do this because I always find that I have more to put in than I have room for or have time to put in. And then on top of that, so often I get to the end of this and I'll go back and review my notes and realize I left something out. And now I don't have any place to put it back in there. And one of the things that I left out last night was to say that insomnia is kind of twofold. For most of us, insomnia is this sort of general condition that just covers, I had a really hard time sleeping, I must have insomnia. And we all understand what that means. But insomnia also is a medical diagnosis. It is actually a real syndrome or disease. I'm not sure what the doctors would call it, but it's real. And when that is present, I am not in any way suggesting that you should not get medical examination and relief from that, because God didn't intend us to live unable to sleep. And sometimes there are organic reasons for insomnia to take place, and we need to be able to see a doctor and receive the correct treatment in order to deal with that. So I had no intention whatsoever of belittling anyone that deals with that diagnosable insomnia, because it is a serious thing. But we also all know that all of us have those bad days and bad nights when we can't really seem to fall asleep. And we refer to those things as insomnia, and it's not really the clinical diagnosable illness. So that's one thing. We just need to live in the Spirit and obey him when he tells us that we need to seek some help. A second thing that I left out and I didn't find until I went back over my notes, I listed 3 of the hormones that the pineal gland secretes. She listed 4, and I didn't find that 4th one until I went back over my notes when I'd already finished this thing and just did not have the horsepower to go back and change it. But there is a 4th hormone, and it's really important, not so much for us in here, but for those who have children, it's extremely important. That 4th hormone is called epithalamine, and it improves our learning and our mental function. It is secreted during sustained sleep at nighttime, and it helps kids' brains to increase their ability to learn and to learn quickly rather than slowly. And you would never want to shortchange your kid in that brain development that's so important to a good life. It's also an important hormone for us adults too, because it delays aging. The studies have shown that this 4th hormone actually suppresses the aging process even in adults. So it would be a good one for us to know about too, as well as improving our mental function as well. A third point that I just want to make before we begin worship sharing. And again, please take this tenderly. I sure express it tenderly. But sleeplessness, I think, as Pam was saying about her and her brother, it may be somewhat genetic, but it's also so often partly due to our own choices, whether they are dietary or a choice not to be physically active and keep our bodies in some level of fitness. All of those things that this author listed as factors in sleeplessness, many of them are just our choices. And we can control those things. We can choose differently. The brain continues to process what we are thinking about as we fall asleep. If we are thinking about stressful and worrisome things, the brain is going to go right on processing those even after we fall asleep. And that's why Pam wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning with her heart racing sometimes, because she's thinking about those kinds of things. Over the years, the Lord has taught me to end my day and begin my day with focused contemplation, focused contemplative prayer, so that if I end my day with gratitude for the good things that have happened on this day, gratitude for the fact that God gave me this another day to live, if I can wake up with that same grateful thought, it can make a huge difference in what your brain does overnight, because your brain will continue cooking whatever it is you started when you lay down to sleep. It's really important that we make choices like that, to choose to think about positive things, to think about heavenly things as we lie down to sleep. One other thing that this woman wrote that was interesting to me, and I did not really remember ever reading this in medical stuff before, was that as we sleep in that sustained sleep, she recommends no less than 6 hours of sleep ever, and really says that 7 is should be the baseline. And then she says, and anything over 9 hours, you start losing the benefit of the sleep that you just got. So she has a sweet spot in there of about 6.5 to 9 hours of sleep. And she said that when you allow your body to rest and sleep that long in sustained fashion, the brain actually does kind of like a radiator flush for your car. It pushes cerebrospinal fluid through the tissues of the brain and just sweeps out all of the dead stuff and all of the stuff that our metabolism has left there that isn't needed. So it's like a cleanse every night if we will give the brain time to do that kind of thing. That was a new medical thing for me. I'll try to do some more reading about that. But the point simply is, we can choose to give ourselves the best opportunity to sleep and rest well so that we can then live and serve well. If that can be our goal, I think we can all make some serious progress in our life of discipleship. The queries that we've posed at the end of this essay are these. How has God used sleep's holistic benefits in your life to help you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? Number 2, what kinds of concerns most often keep you awake at night, and how do you deal with them? Number 3, how have you seen people nowadays asleep to God's presence and truth and in need of God's wake-up call? And number 4, what is your favorite sleep or dream story from the Bible? There are plenty there to choose from. We thank you once again for being with us for worship sharing today. We will wait quietly in the Lord's presence and ask that as you feel the nudge of the Spirit to share something that is going to help somebody else who is gathered here today, please be faithful and share what you have learned so that we can all learn along with you. Thank you once again for being here. God bless you all.
Before we begin, I just need to have a sound test. Rhonda, can you, I'm going to unmute you if you can just talk for a minute.
Okay. Can you hear me?
You can hear her? Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Regarding the fourth query about favorite sleep or dream stories from the Bible, I don't know that it's one of my favorites exactly, but I've always been curious why the writers in the scriptures of Matthew felt it was so important to talk about the message that Pilate's wife sent to him while he was confronted with what to do with Jesus. It's only, I think in Matthew is the only place that's recorded, but how important that must have been to maybe just to highlight the dilemma that Pilate was in. I don't know, but Pilate's wife was definitely scared enough to risk interrupting her husband to say, "Hey, don't mess with this guy. I've had bad dreams about him all night." It was put in there once. It gives enough credence that we don't belittle dreams. They are important and we should not ignore them. I'd like to elaborate on that more, but it's a lot of development yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was kind of debating whether I was going to share this or not. So I do have a dream story. It's not from the Bible, but it's kind of more of a personal experience. So this just happened like back in the middle of like my darker days. I was in Newcastle. I remember I was having problems sleeping. I mean, it's loud. There's a bunch of people around you at all times, and I remember I was struggling a lot with my relationship with my dad. I can't remember specifically what had happened, but he had done something that had really hurt me again, and I was feeling just in the midst of guilt and shame, and I couldn't get these thoughts out of my head. I share this and say, like, some people would say, like, it might have been that, or you might have just had too much sugar before you went to sleep, but I remember having a dream where I got to talk to Jesus. And it's been a long time, and most of the details are a little hazy, but I remember I was walking down the street that I grew up on, which is just Franklin Street right over here, walking down the sidewalk towards where my grandmother lived, over there on the corner next to the creek. And I remember I was walking, and I had this feeling that someone was behind me. And I look behind me, and I see this, long-haired, bearded man with, the white robe. And I look back, and I do a double take, and I'm like, looking forward. I'm like, is that, And I'm like, so I'm still walking, and I walk a couple more feet, and I turn around, I'm like, are you Jesus? And he said, I am. Like enthusiastically. I thought, the demeanor in which he, it was, I always imagined like Mufasa in my head, like, I am. It's just like more enthusiastic, like, I am, And I'm like, okay, So I keep on walking, and then I'm like, do you want to walk next to me? Because he's like, I would like that, yeah. So we start walking, and we're walking towards my grandmother's house, and we get to the creek. And, I remember having a bunch of just, wholesome, meaningful conversations with my grandmother when she was still alive in front of the creek. And I can't remember specific details as much, but I remember at some point there was a path that I noticed that there isn't the one there, in real life, but that went down to the creek. So we walked down there together, and we were standing in the water. And at some point, the creek we were standing in turned into a lake, and I hadn't noticed, I guess, but it was just like a vast lake, and there was, cloudy skies, fog, couldn't see the other end of the lake, but we were standing in the water, and I remember talking about my dad, about how I was feeling with it, how I was struggling with it, and I felt awful. And I remember just the details of the conversation were that both you and your father have healing to do, but it's okay to be sad. And then he put a hand around my shoulder, and I just broke. I just started crying, and I don't know. And he talked me through my feelings. I remember it's kind of like a release of all this stuff, all these things I'm holding on to, and I don't know. I like to think that was real, because when I woke up the next morning, I was just I was lighter. I felt lighter. I felt more okay than I had been in a while. And, I was able to let that go. And I don't know. It's just, I've never had another dream like that. Never, not that I can remember, talking to Jesus. But I really like to think that he showed up for me in those moments, and in my sleep. And I don't know. It's just something I wanted to share with everybody.
Thank you. Okay, Bill.
Okay, I don't have my technician by my side this morning, so I wasn't sure if I could be heard or not. And interestingly enough, I don't have her by my side because last night was one of those reoccurring bad nights, I guess you could say, in which there was no sleep. And this has happened a time or two before. And I didn't want to be a part of worship sharing without her. And so we were both absent, but she made me promise I wouldn't do that this morning. So here I am. But back to her, she does have a situation there that we need to find an answer for. And she has her annual with her doctor in about a month. So I hope we can find some answers there. Anyway, number 4 in the queries. It's interesting. I always thought that Peter went into a sleep in Acts 10, but they use the word trance. And that word is also used in the King James Version. Peter went into a trance. Does that mean that was a sleep? I don't know, but that story has always meant a lot to me because that was the breakthrough moment in Peter's very Jewish consciousness and for the church itself, mainly Jewish among the people of Jerusalem, in which, with the animals and the various parts of that trance/dream that Peter had, the gospel was open to the Gentiles. And that's me. And that's you. And that's how it all happened. And, dreams are deeply psychological things and interesting things too. But that trance/dream has always meant so much to me because that was the major breakthrough to bring the good news to the whole world, Gentiles as well as Jews. I'm very thankful for that. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Well, I decided I should share this morning since finally Ron picked a topic that I'm really good at. I can go to sleep on the drop of a hat, and I usually do. Now, I have nights that I don't sleep well. I'll have to confess that. But I think I've got a few things that have worked for me when I don't, that I'll share those, and that is trying very hard to kind of keep going to bed at the same time every night, trying to keep that. I don't keep that totally, but I think trying to do that is helpful. And even when I think, oh, I'm not sleepy, but if I convince myself. So time change does kind of wreck my what happens for me, and I'm that and just funny little things. But this one wasn't so funny. But after Dale died, I switched sides of the bed because I didn't care if my side was empty, but it bothered me for his to be empty, and so that worked. I was able to sleep. I think there's just things, instead of just throwing up our hands and getting up and saying, well, I can't sleep, there's things we need to think about how we might change to. So I want you all to get a good night's sleep, so that's why I'm sharing that. I'm also a dreamer, and my mother and I used to, as a little kid, I remember at the breakfast table sharing our dreams, and if she had one and I didn't, I was kind of disappointed. But once in a while I had one she didn't, but most of the time we both had a dream to share, and they were silly, we had no idea where they came from, and I don't know that we ever tried to totally read them, figure out why. But I think that was just part of who I am and how I grew up. So mainly when I have a dream, even if it's a little bit disturbing, I wake up with oh, well, that was a dream. I didn't like that one so much, and I'll usually go right back to sleep. It's not anything that alarms me. But I think from the Bible, immediately I was thinking of Joseph. And then I went, well, and then I started thinking about it, and I went, well, what dream? Because there's kind of lots of dreams in that story. And so I kind of read through that again last night, and I was thinking, well, what dream did I think was the one, And I still don't know. And maybe it might be a good thing for us all to kind of read through, but I thought one thing was he told his brothers a dream, and it made him look like he thought he was going to be really important. And then he had another one that sounded kind of the same, and they weren't too impressed with that dream. And so bad things happened. But kind of based on that, I don't think the relationship was great to begin with, probably just reading between the lines, but yeah. So, but in the end, when kind of that dream did kind of come true for him, but he did, after the brothers hadn't been nice to him at all, he wanted to care for them and his family in the end when he was able to. And I think that was it wasn't a dream. There were lots of important dreams in between. But I just felt like him being able to put aside the differences and take care of his family, and was a good thought, and but it came from a dream.
Thank you.
I can't sleep, so, I mean, I sleep, but seems like more often than not, I'm up. And I have a tendency to, not every time, but to talk to God through that time. It's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm wide awake. And things bother me, little piddly stuff, but then once in a while, big stuff, and I'll just say, well, God, here I am, I'm awake again, and I just kindly talk. And then also, if you can't sleep, it works for me. I'll just finally get up and lay on the couch, and then I'm able to sleep. And Ellen is the one that told me about the bed. After Ben passed away, I was struggling with sleep, and I couldn't lay on my side of the bed. And I told Ellen, and she said she went through that, and she just slept on Ben's side or Dale's side. So I switched. It works. That isn't an empty side of the bed, you know, so it works. So, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a particular song that I don't know who sung the song or where it came from, but it's one that I've always liked for the simple verses, "Hold on, my child." The light comes in the morning. And that is so true. I know when the kids would be little, they would be upset or not feeling well. It'll be better in the morning. Well, when you take all your problems and work through them with God's help or with your help with someone is sick, it is better in the morning. When you let it shine in the light, it's usually better in the morning. Once you have rested or released the problem that you have, look at it from a different point of view. Things can be better in the morning if you just hold on.
Thank you.
We are at the top of the hour. We will wait for just a moment longer. If you know that you've been led to say something today, please take this opportunity to do that. Online, you can unmute. Here in the room, get Rob's attention. I'm going to assume that hearts are clear. Thank you to each of you who have shared something today. It's interesting to hear we are all so different. Our sleep patterns and dream patterns are very different. We're all human beings. We're all part of the same family of God. It's good to hear how one another's experiences differ, but still affirm that relationship in God's family. Just one thought to close this with. This is at the end of the piece that we sent out last night. In the next to the last titled paragraph, God uses sleep to commune and to guide. I believe with all my heart the sentence that I put in bold at the end of that paragraph. Living in touch with the Spirit of Christ all day long, right up to the moment you drift into sleep, sets the table for communion with God to occur in your soul as God's gift of sleep brings healing to your body, mind, and emotions. It's just like getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner. If you make no preparations, the dinner's going to be a fiasco. We need even to prepare for that time spent in sleep when we are not fully conscious. If we set the table properly through gratitude, through openness to God, just through communing with Christ all day long, I think it can keep us from sabotaging God's healing gifts that take place during the time of sleep overnight or whenever we are sleeping. So just keep that in mind, that how we live all the time makes it possible for God to give us these blessings in great measure. To close this, why don't we sing together one more hymn. This will be number 56 in your hymnal, 5-6. The title of it is Day by Day. I'm sure that most of you will know this. Number 56, Day by Day. Day by day, and with each passing moment, strength I find to meet my trials here. Trusting in my Father's wise bestowment, I've no cause for worry or for fear. He whose heart is kind beyond all measure gives unto each day what he deems best. Lovingly, it's part of pain and pleasure, mingling toil with peace and rest. Every day the Lord himself is near me, with a special mercy for each hour. All my cares he fain would hear thank you once again for your singing. It's always an encouragement. Before we go, and I hope that you'll think about the words of that hymn too, because they are really important to this topic. Before we go, we do want to make sure that friends know what's happening around here this week. So tomorrow, Monday, the 11th of November, the fiction book discussion group will meet at 7:30 p.m. by Zoom, and they have been reading a book called Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. I think there's still one copy over on the table, so if you're a really fast reader, you could grab that and be ready for discussion tomorrow evening. You are welcome and invited to discuss, even if you haven't read the book. You can learn just by listening to those who have. Tomorrow evening, 7:30 p.m. by Zoom. On Wednesday this week, the 13th of November, we will have prayer soup supper at 5:30 p.m. at the parsonage. That will be followed by the Welcome Class Bible Study. This week they will be studying lesson number 4 in the Illuminate Quarterly. It's a lesson called Thanksgiving Psalms. It's drawn from the 9th and 136th Psalms. You can gladly prepare ahead of time, have a look at the lesson number 4 and those particular scriptures. Everyone is welcome. If you'll just let us know you need a quarterly or need the Zoom link, we'll be glad to get that to you. That's all on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. Then at 8:15 on Wednesday evening, after the welcome class has finished using the Zoom facility, the Fabulous Friends and Parsonage classes will have their every other week check-in Zoom. That's at 8:15 on Wednesday. On Thursday this week, the 14th of November, there will be choir practice at 6:30 p.m. down in the Annex Choir Room, and that's followed then by the chiming choir practice at 7:15 in the basement parlor. And next Sunday, the 17th of November, we will be back here at the same time in the same manner for worship sharing. We will be here both in person and on Zoom. We hope that you will join us, and we hope you'll bring a new friend. Next Sunday, being the third Sunday of the month, is also Community Food Pantry Sunday, when we encourage people to just contribute a staple food item or $1 or $2 to help support the work of our local food pantry. And then at 3:30 p.m. next Sunday afternoon, we will have the trustees meeting by Zoom or over at the parsonage, and the Missions and Social Concerns Committee will then meet at 4:30 p.m. also by Zoom, or you're welcome at the parsonage for that as well. A couple of other things today. There's still a sign-up sheet over on the table under the picture of Jesus for placing poinsettias during the Christmas season. They are $7 each. We'll be picking those up on about the 25th, I think, of November. So still a couple of Sundays left. If you'd like to place one of those in memory or in honor of someone, you may sign that sheet today and be sure and specify on there in whose memory or in whose honor you are providing that poinsettia. Over at the entrance to the parlor today, there is an offering plate that is there to receive contributions for supporting the ministries of Winchester Friends. We thank each and every one of you for the faithful way that you have sustained the work of our faith communities so faithfully over these past months and years. And one last item on here that we've not been printing yet, but it's time to start. There will be, it was decided last Monday, there will be a community Thanksgiving service held downtown at the community square, I can't remember.
Town Square.
Yeah, Town Square Community Center, it's typed here. That will happen on the 24th of November at 4:30 in the afternoon. That time was requested because some folks want to come and not have to drive home in the dark. And they think that this will be over with just about at dusk. So that will be on November 24th at 4:30 p.m. downtown, just across the street south of the courthouse. It is planned to be primarily a service of gratitude and thanksgiving to the Lord for the way that he cared for Winchester through the horrible tornado that came through last March. There will be several people who have been asked to share a brief testimony of thankfulness to God, and then there will be opportunity for others who were not asked in advance to also share their experience of how God helped them to get through this tragedy. Cleo McFarland will be speaking on behalf of Winchester Friends. We're very thankful that he has been willing to do that. So if you'd like to join the community in giving thanks to God for safety through the tornado experience, please mark your calendar, November 24 at 4:30 p.m. downtown. On the prayer concern side of our sheet today, Sharon Reinard is now preparing for heart valve replacement surgery that has been scheduled for Wednesday, November 27, the day before Thanksgiving. She will have much to give thanks for on Thanksgiving Day. Please be praying for Sharon. Pray for Terry as he works to help her. Pray that that will go extremely well. Becky Edmonds has been with us today. She's still at Westminster Village receiving therapy and other treatments after hospitalization for a severe infection and other health concerns. Please pray for Becky and for Nate at Westminster Village today. Pray for Keith Kendall down at Friends Fellowship. He has been with us at least part of the time this morning. He is still receiving therapy in the medical unit at Friends Fellowship. Charlie Boyd, I would suspect, is with us. I have not seen him in the picture, but I'm pretty sure that he's around there somewhere. He's recuperating at home after his recent long hospitalization for treatment of autoimmune illnesses. And Megan Kirkpatrick continues her recovery from injury suffered in a July 18th auto accident. She is at home in Anderson. Please pray for Megan. And
Having stem cell surgery on Tuesday.
okay, they are going to do a surgery on Megan Thursday? Tuesday, this coming week, that is to repair tissue that has been badly destroyed by all of the trauma on her shoulder, I believe, in her arm. So please pray for Megan specifically this week on Tuesday as she undergoes this latest surgery. I'm pretty sure there probably will be more before this is all over with, but pray for her for this one to go extremely well. In addition to those concerns, I would add Joyce Wagner on there. Joyce dealing with insomnia overnight last night, and also Val Pearson, who is dealing with an upper respiratory illness, lots of coughing, not feeling well at all. So please add those two to your list today to pray for. In addition, we have a list of cancer patients. It's the same list that we've had for some weeks now. Cheryl Thomas in South Carolina, the Growth's daughter. Marvin McFarland is Cleo McFarland's brother in Arizona. Carolyn Dwiggins is our friend in South Carolina. Jenny Bickle Renault is Doug Baker's friend in Michigan. Leanne Kennedy is the Edmonds niece over in Muncie. Carla Hayes is a friend of J.C. Craig. And Trudy Wells is a friend of the McFarlands, all of them dealing with cancer in some way. And I am quite sure that you know others as well. Please pray for them all as the Lord brings them to mind. You can pray for Val as you pray for patients also with COVID-19 and other seasonal illnesses. So much respiratory stuff going around now. Pray for them and pray for the doctors who are working to help them. We asked you last Sunday to pray for Pat Denny's stepmother-in-law. She was in a hospice facility in the Indianapolis area last week. I learned in the middle of the week that Nancy Denny had died on Monday night after we had learned of her illness on Sunday. So please pray for Pat Denny and her children especially. They will be gathering, I couldn't remember when Ellen told me the funeral was, next weekend. So in another week, they will be gathering in Indianapolis, I believe, for a memorial service. And they are traveling, some of them in for quite a distance. So please be praying for Pat Denny and her family through this time of sadness for them. I hope you've been watching the news reports and have seen the wildfires going crazy just outside of Los Angeles. And now we've got them on the East Coast as well, New Jersey, New York, several places up and down the East Coast dealing with uncontrolled wildfires. Please pray for people in those places to be safe, for those firefighters to get their job done without injury, and continue praying for those who are in the paths of hurricanes and tornadoes. It has been pretty wild year for all of these kinds of things, so just pray as you hear those reports. Please also pray for our nation in this post-election period, that peace and civility will endure, and that we can learn to treat one another as God would have us treat each and every person, recognizing that of God in all of them. And pray for peace in a world that desperately needs it. Pray that God will speak to the people who are causing so much havoc and harm, and that God will be able to persuade them to solve the problems a different way. Those are the things that were on our list today. We'll be glad to add your concerns to this list for just a moment here. Online, you'll need to unmute. If you've got something you would like us to add here in the room, you can wave your hand. Eileen? Rob's going to bring you the microphone.
I have a great nephew. He's 11 years old and he's having heart issues. I don't know, and they don't know if it's been ongoing or just something they just found out. But they're sending him on to a children's heart specialist. So it's greatly concerned about this. So just some prayers. And my sister-in-law is seeing her surgeon tomorrow. She's facing some surgery. And their son, Casey, I've talked about him before. He had COVID and it really damaged his lungs. And so that's an ongoing thing with him, always with the doctor and things. So just some little prayers for my family. Thank you.
Thank you for telling us. Don't see any other arms waving. Don't see any lights flashing. Let's trust that we've got this covered for now. Again, as I always remind you, you're welcome to email or phone those things into us if you think of something later that you would like added to our list. For just a moment, would you pause with me to lift these concerns into God's care? Let's pray. We thank you, Lord, for the privilege of being together in worship on this day. We thank you for your very tangible presence among us today. Thank you for your guidance and leadership over this meeting for worship. We ask that you would receive our being here and the things that we have said and done as expressions of praise and worship to you, the source of our lives and everything that we are and have. We look to you once again for help for these who are on our list and those who are on our hearts, who are dealing with physical maladies, who are dealing with difficult situations, who are facing huge challenges in their lives. We ask that you would draw close to each and every one of them, that you would provide whatever healing and strengthening and encouragement is needed in this moment on this day. We ask that you will intervene in situations where there is real crisis, that you will bring your healing presence and your love into those places. We commit each and every one of these into your care in absolute confidence that you will do what is best for them. We ask on behalf of our entire country, Lord, that we might heed your invitation to come unto you. We are exhausted this year with all of these tragedies, with the tension around the changes in our country. All of this stuff has exhausted just about everyone. Help us together as a people, and help us as a faith community to hear you invite us to come unto you who have labored and are heavy laden, so that we can receive your rest, so that we can be revived and rejuvenated, so that we can be the servants of God that we should be, that we can be your faithful ambassadors to our community. We cannot do this alone. Please come to us by your Spirit and grant us that renewal. and that new energy that is required to accomplish what you have called us to do. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. That's where we're invited, near to God's heart. I hope you can dwell there on this day. God bless you all. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful remainder of your Sunday. You are at liberty. Go in peace. Thank you, everyone here.